pretty cool. We're gonna upgrade a graphics card. We have an Alienware machine here, and we have a GTX 1060 from NVidia. This is a pretty cool card. It's a good budget-friendly card, and we're gonna put it in a really small form factor case. I did some research, should fit. Let's check it out, and I'll show you what I'm doing when I'm doing it. That way, if you guys have the same machine, you'll know whether or not this card fits, and if it does, how to do it. So check it out, let's see how it goes. Alright guys, here we go. So we have the Alienware here, and we're gonna go ahead and take it apart, get it going. So first thing is we have to remove the case, the side cover, side panel. And I already took the screw out, but for reference, on the back here, there's a single screw in the center. And this screw is what you need to remove to let this panel release. Now, on the side, I believe there's LED lights in here. And the reason I think that is there's a little power cable here. When you release this, don't yank it away, because this will be connected right here. So you'll notice it'll tug. Just make sure you unclip it. You can do it with your hand, it doesn't take any force. Next, we have the casing here. Now on this casing, I also did the screws on this already. There is 2 screws as well. There's one right here, and then there's one right here. When you take these out, it's actually gonna lift straight out. This card is a PCI Express card, but it uses a riser board. So normally a card would sit straight up and down on the motherboard, but you actually right here, if you can see this, you have a riser card here which comes up, and then the card slots into the riser card. So think of it like that. So you have the riser card that goes in, and pretty much that just reorients the port from being a port that you plug downward into now to a port that you plug in sideways. That way they can lay the car flat rather than trying to fit it tall way in a very skinny case like this. So that makes it easy. What you do next is you literally pull it up. So you just grab anywhere and you just pull the front and the back up evenly. You might have to wiggle it a little bit here because again the riser card's stuck in. And once you pull this up evenly, you will actually, on the back side, you'll have your power cable. There's a little clip here, undo the clip, wiggle it out, and this does take a little bit of force, and that'll do it. Now it does give you 2, so that gives you a little bit of options when you upgrade. Now you have the card. Now this is the riser card I was telling you about, and we need to remove it from that because we actually have to get the card out of this framing here. So what we need to do is on the top, the part that you were tugging on, there's a little clip here, and this is standard on all PCI Express, even AGP ports. They have these little clips that lock them in. So what you're going to do is hold it this way. You don't want the card falling. And you're going to press that clip with one hand. While you're pressing it, you're going to pull it away from the riser card. And once you do that, you can let go of the switch or the clip, and you have the graphics card out. So we're going to put that aside. Recommended not to put the circuit board down, so we'll put the fan side down. We'll just set that over there for now. Now we're going to reuse this frame for the new card. So I'm going to take that out of the box and I'll be right back. Alright, now that we have the graphics card out, I'm going to make sure that we have the right power connectors, okay, after some digging I found out, and this is different, that although there's an 8-pin here, an 8-pin PCI Express power connector, the PNY website, company that makes this reference card, said that you can actually put a 6 or an 8-pin. And the reason I had to check that was that this particular model, the Alienware X51, only has 2 6-pins. It doesn't have a 2-pin or an 8-pin, which would allow me to, plug directly in. So that should be good then. We should be able to fit this. And if you're not aware, the pins on these are actually shaped differently so that they can only plug in one way, and that'll stop you from plugging it into the wrong section of the port. So it should be fine. So we're gonna see if we can mount this in the enclosure here, the case, and see if we can get this plugged in. And the nice thing is that the supplemental power is here on top, so it doesn't interfere with how this plugs in. So the way you plug it in is you are just going to slide it down nicely. Don't rush this because you don't want to grind the back of the circuit board against the case. So once you have it there, you're going to fit it right in. You're going to make that riser card fit, slide right in with the slot on the card. Now, one thing to make sure, and I just ran into this now, this has an odd little, instead of putting a screw through it like a normal computer would, it has a little locking clip here. So you want to make sure it's fully open before you slide it in. Okay. And when you're ready, slide it all the way down. And once you get there, you're just going to press it in there nicely. Make sure it's in all the way. Once that's in, you should be able to close this on it. It should lock in place. And then we're going to get ready to plug this in. Now, we want to make sure we plug in. Now, I don't think that it matters, but we're just going to plug it into cable number 1 because that's what it was plugged into. So if it's the same as it looks like, it goes all the way to the back side here. Clips right in, and then we're going to so this is going to go like this. Now again, this part here slides into this little groove right here. This is going to align with the back side of the case, and you're going to want to fit this extra power cable down at the side. We're going to go ahead and do that now. One thing I just noticed when I started sliding it down, this little clip came open. So you just want to make sure it's fully clipped or it won't slide in. So once we have that properly oriented there, we're going to slowly slide it down. And once we get to almost to the bottom, we want to slow down because we have to make sure this riser card slots in correctly. So once we're good, clips right in. Nice and solid. We're going to put that extra power, we're going to feed that power cable down so it doesn't interfere with the closing of the case. And actually, it looks like it might. There we go. Then we're going to use these screws, put these screws back on here. And I almost forgot, during my little questioning moment, I disconnected the CD drive, so we want to make sure if you do disconnect anything else that you get it plugged back in. This is a very quick install, so you just put it in there and slide it. And I did have a screw for that. That screw is actually for that. See, I almost used the wrong screw there. Now, what did I do with that final remaining screw? One thing I'm very good at, and I'm sure you guys can relate, is I tend to lose the screws that I'm working with all the time. It's funny because I do have one of those magnetic dishes and I never use it. Alright, I'll be right back when I find that screw. Before I even go anywhere, it was right in front of me. So, let's go ahead, put that in there. Should be the right one. But it does feel tight. Why does that feel so tight? It might just not be aligned right. One thing that's important is not to force a screw in, because you can de-thread the screw, or even worse, what you're trying to screw it into. And that wouldn't be fun because you're not going to want to have to repair that especially in a computer case where that should never happen, so it's best not to force them in. I'm not entirely sure why this isn't fitting. It's definitely where it goes. Okay. I guess I just had to really squeeze the case when I was doing it. Good thing to note when you put it back together, if you have trouble putting one in, tighten everything up with your hands while you're screwing it in. And that should be what you have to do to get it in. Now we're going to get this case side panel on. Now remember, the first thing you have to do is plug this if you want the lights to work. And you really should do this, because if you don't, then you have a loose cable in here, and turns out your CPU cooler is right there. And if that falls down in there and hits the fan, could break that, could overheat your processor. It's not worth the trouble. It's easier just to plug this in and do it the right way. So once you get that in there, this goes, you slide it forward. So it should be set a little bit off to the front and then you have to find it should click into place. I think I just found it. And it should just slide back, but I don't have it exactly right. There we go. That's all it was. Make sure it's all the way back, and then you'll notice on the back here, one more screw right there. Go ahead and put that in. And that's it. Now we have our Alienware X51 here, the much better graphics card, much more capable to play high-end games now at 1080p. You might be able to run a little bit at 2K, but really this machine's suited best for 1080p, and with that graphics card you'll be able to get good frame rates on just about any current game, at least in 2016, 2017. You should be able to run pretty strong with a 1060. I have heard cases that people have fit 1070s in this. I would double check sizing, double check your power requirements, because this in its top spec, which is this spec, only has a 330 watt power supply. So you have to be careful that you don't throw in a graphics card that's too demanding and it either doesn't have the cables for it or it just can't handle the power of it. This worked well. I mean, we didn't install yet, but really it should just be as simple as powering it on. It should automatically use that new graphics card, because the old graphics card was the same form factor, PCI Express, so the BIOS is going to already be set up to read and look for that card there. So it's going to probably boot into Windows without a problem, and when it does, it might look a little sloppy, but that's just because we need drivers. So all you'll have to do is go to the manufacturer's website. So for this, you're going to go to either PNY or NVidia. Most likely you'll go to NVidia because they have the, your game rated drivers and things like that. You go there, you download the latest driver, you should be good to go. This should be all you have to do. What I will do though, because this was kind of a specialized install, because this is Dell and Alienware making a really tight form factor case, I'm going to do a basic power supply install as well, so you guys can get a general idea. If you have a big ATX case, then you'll know, how simple it is to do a graphics card install. It's really not very little trouble to get one of these installed. This one was a little bit more troublesome just because of the tight clearances and the weird power requirements and things like that. This power supply only had those two cables, whereas a normal one, generally, if it's anything rated for gaming, will have a bunch of extra power hanging around, or it'll be modular where you can disconnect the cables, so you should have the ability to install. But when you do buy a graphics card, make sure your power supply can support it by power, your wattage, as well as it has the proper cables, because it's a really easy way to not be able to install your video card. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope if you have the Alienware, the X51, and you are doing this install, that it works out for you. And if you find this useful, if you find this interesting, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, hit that subscribe button, and check out the next video. See you next time, guys.